Just imagine this for a second. Your husband dies, you bury him, and a week later you watch him walk back into your house like nothing ever happened. That's what happened to me. And I swear to you, I am not losing my mind. It all started the day of his funeral. Mark and I had been married for 18 years. We weren't perfect, but we were steady, reliable, comfortable in a way that comes from knowing someone down to the core. He was a good man, practical, level-headed, not the type to believe in anything beyond what he could touch with his own hands. He used to laugh at ghost shows on TV, saying, "If the dead could walk, why haven't I seen one?" I used to laugh with him. I don't laugh anymore. The funeral was small, intimate. Just family, a few close friends. Mark's heart attack had been sudden, a quiet betrayal of his body while he was asleep beside me. One moment I was waking to the sound of his uneven breathing, the next I was screaming into the phone for an ambulance that arrived too late. I remember standing over his casket, numb, my fingers tracing the polished wood. His wedding ring, mine's twin, rested on his folded hands, and I kissed it goodbye. My husband was gone. That fact pressed into me like a blade I couldn't pull out. The days that followed blurred into one long stretch of silence. Everyone had gone home, back to their lives, while mine felt like it had stopped. The house was too quiet without his footsteps, his voice. I couldn't even bring myself to sleep in our bed. I stayed in the living room most nights, wrapped in his old sweater, just trying to breathe. And then, 7 nights after the funeral, it happened. It was late, past midnight. I had dozed off on the couch when I heard the front door creak open. Not just the sound, no, it was the subtle rhythm of it, the way the hinges always groaned a little halfway through. A sound I knew like my own breath. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But then came the footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Shoes on wood. The exact cadence of Mark coming home after a late shift. I sat up, my heart slamming against my ribs. My brain scrambled for answers. Maybe someone had broken in. Maybe I was imagining it. But then I heard it, the low, familiar exhale of breath, the soft grunt he always made when bending to untie his shoes. And I froze. Because I knew that sound. I had heard it 1,000 times before, in this very hallway. I whispered his name before I could stop myself. Mark. There was no reply. Just silence, and then, slowly, the shadow of a man stretched across the wall as he stepped into view. My husband. He was wearing the same gray suit I had buried him in. His hair was neat, his face pale, but unmistakably his. He looked solid, real, not some transparent vision. He stood there in the doorway like he'd just come home from work, like nothing was wrong, like he wasn't supposed to be 6 feet under the ground. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My body locked, torn between running and collapsing. My mouth went dry. He looked at me. His eyes found mine, calm, almost soft, but empty in a way that made my stomach turn. His lips parted slightly, as if he might say something, but no words came. The silence stretched on, pressing against my ears. I finally managed to choke out, "You're dead." And that's when his head tilted, just slightly, unnaturally, like he was studying me, confused by my words. I don't remember deciding to run. My body just reacted. I bolted from the couch, stumbled into the kitchen, and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold it. When I looked back toward the doorway, he was gone. No sound of footsteps leaving. No slam of the front door. Nothing. Just an empty hall. For a long time, I stood there in the kitchen, clutching the knife, listening so hard my ears rang. The house was still. But I knew what I had seen. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it hadn't happened. Grief does strange things to the mind. I told myself I had been dreaming, that my exhaustion had finally pushed me into some vivid hallucination. I even Googled it, seeing dead spouse after funeral. Pages of results popped up, people swearing they had seen or felt their loved ones. Most called it grief hallucinations. Doctors explained it away as the brain coping with trauma. But the difference was, they described whispers, glimpses, fleeting shadows. What I saw wasn't fleeting. Mark had been standing in my hallway, dressed in the same suit I had buried him in, as real as the floor under my feet. And yet, When daylight came, even I began to doubt myself. I walked through the house slowly that morning, checking each room. The front door was locked from the inside. The hallway looked normal. No footprints, no open windows, nothing out of place. But my gut knew better. The air itself felt different, like something was still here with me, watching. That day dragged on like a fog. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. I kept looking at the door, half expecting it to creak open again. By evening, I thought maybe I had worked myself into such a frenzy that I was feeding the illusion. Maybe if I stayed calm, it would all stop. But that night, it didn't. I had just settled on the couch again, wrapped in a sweater, when the sound came. A soft scrape, like fingers brushing along the wall. At first, I thought it was the tree outside scraping against the siding, but then I realized the sound was coming from inside the hallway. I sat up, every muscle tightening. The scrape turned into a faint shuffle. Slow steps, dragging slightly as though someone's shoes were too heavy. "Mark." The word slipped out before I could stop it. My voice trembled. The sound stopped. I held my breath, staring into the dark hallway. Nothing moved. For several long seconds, I thought maybe it had been my imagination again. I even started to relax. And then, the smell hit me. It was faint at first, like damp earth. The smell of fresh soil after rain. But layered beneath it was something sharper, something sour and metallic. The smell of decay. It rolled into the room in waves until it coated my tongue. I gagged, pressing my sleeve to my nose, my eyes watering. And then I saw it. A hand, pale, stiff, fingertips bruised purple, slid around the edge of the hallway wall. Just a hand. Motionless, like it was bracing against the corner. I couldn't move. My legs felt nailed to the couch. Slowly, the rest of him emerged. Mark stepped into view, just as before, gray suit, pale skin, but this time, he didn't look like he had the night of the funeral. His face was gaunter, his skin stretched tighter, and his lips had darkened around the edges. His eyes were dull, unfocused, but locked on me. My stomach twisted. He wasn't just here, he was changing. He took one step into the living room. The floorboards groaned under his weight. He was solid, not a shadow, not a vision. I whispered, "You're not real." But he kept coming. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. My hands fumbled for the lamp on the end table. I yanked the chain, flooding the room with yellow light. And, just like that, he was gone. Not faded. Not walked away. Gone. The smell lingered, though. Heavy, choking. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light in the house blazing, clutching the phone in my hand. I almost called someone, my sister, a friend, but what would I even say? That my dead husband kept coming home? By dawn, my exhaustion finally dragged me under. When I woke, the house looked normal again. The air was clean. No footprints, no smell. But something had changed in me. I knew now that I wasn't hallucinating. Mark was here, or something that looked like him. And whatever it was, it wanted me to see it. The third night was worse. By then, I had given up trying to sleep. I sat in the living room with the TV on low, just to drown out the silence. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow in the corner of my eye made my skin crawl. I told myself I'd stay awake all night, that if I didn't close my eyes, nothing could sneak up on me. But exhaustion always wins. At some point, I drifted off. I woke to the sound of breathing. Not mine. Not the soft hum of the refrigerator, or the faint buzz of the TV. This was close. Human. Slow, steady breaths filling the room. I froze, my eyes still half closed. If I didn't move, maybe it would go away. But then came the sound of fabric shifting, the faint rustle of someone standing over me. My heart slammed into my throat. I forced my eyes open, just a sliver, and saw him. Mark. He was standing right next to the couch, leaning over me. His face was inches from mine. His skin looked waxy in the dim glow of the TV, his lips slightly parted as he breathed, his eyes dull but fixed on me like he was drinking me in. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I couldn't even breathe. I just lay there, trapped under his gaze, while every instinct in me screamed to run. Then, slowly, he raised a hand. His fingers hovered over my cheek, trembling slightly, like he was about to touch me. That broke me. I bolted upright with a scream, shoving backwards so hard I toppled off the couch and hit the floor. The impact rattled through my bones, but I scrambled up anyway, gasping. When I looked back, he was gone. No footsteps, no sound of retreat. Just empty space where he'd been standing. But the air still smelled like damp earth. I stayed awake until dawn, pacing the house, checking every corner like a paranoid animal. When the sun finally rose, I collapsed in the kitchen, clutching a cup of cold coffee, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. That was the first morning I admitted something aloud. "You're not him," I whispered to the empty house. My voice cracked. "Whatever you are, you're not my husband." The silence that followed felt heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. For the next 2 days, nothing happened. The house was still quiet. Too quiet. I started to think maybe I had broken whatever spell was holding me. Maybe acknowledging it out loud had banished it somehow. But deep down, I knew better. On the 5th night, I heard the front door creak open again. The sound shot straight through me. I was in the kitchen this time, sitting with a glass of water, trying to convince myself I could live through another night. The hinges groaned halfway, just as they always had. My breath caught. My glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the tile, but I didn't even flinch. Because I could already hear the footsteps. Heavy. Familiar. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. The steps came closer, echoing through the hall. I didn't want to look, but my body betrayed me. My eyes locked onto the doorway just as he appeared. Mark. But this time, he didn't look calm. His suit was wrinkled, stained at the collar. His skin was darker now, almost gray, his jaw slack, as if holding his head up had become too much. His eyes, his eyes, were cloudy, like glass marbles sunk in water. He moved slower, dragging his feet, his arms hanging at his sides. But the way he looked at me, it was hunger. Not for food. Not for touch. Something deeper. I stumbled back until my spine hit the refrigerator. My voice came out cracked, broken. "What do you want from me?" His head tilted again, the same unnatural angle as before. But this time, his lips moved. A rasp of air escaped them, barely a sound, but enough to freeze the blood in my veins. Home. The word was dry, hollow, like it had been dragged up from somewhere deep underground. Then he took a step toward me. My scream tore out of me before I knew it was coming. I bolted, shoving past the counter, racing through the hallway toward the stairs. My legs barely worked, my breath ragged. Behind me, I heard the dragging steps quicken. He was following. I slammed into the bedroom, locked the door, and collapsed against it, sobbing. For what felt like hours, I sat there, listening to the silence outside. No footsteps. No voice. Nothing. But when I finally worked up the courage to peek under the door, I saw it. A shadow. Standing perfectly still. Waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I sat against the bedroom door until the sun rose, clutching my phone with trembling hands. Every time my eyes started to droop, I'd jolt awake, certain I'd hear the dragging footsteps outside. But the hallway stayed quiet. By morning, the shadow was gone. When I finally unlocked the door, I half expected him to be standing there, waiting. But the hall was empty, the air clean, the house drenched in daylight like nothing had ever happened. I should have called someone. My sister, maybe. Or even the police. But what would I say? My dead husband keeps walking into the house? They'd lock me up faster than they'd believe me. So I went about the day pretending. I brewed coffee I couldn't drink, washed dishes that weren't dirty, anything to keep from thinking about what waited for me when the sun went down. But that afternoon, it happened. I was in the laundry room, folding a load of towels when I felt it. That shift in the air. The sudden weight pressing on the room, thick and suffocating. My chest tightened instantly. I turned slowly, already knowing what I'd see. He was standing in the doorway. Mark. Only this time, the light was streaming through the window behind him, and I couldn't pretend it was a shadow trick. His skin looked worse in daylight, bloated, discolored, like something that had been lying too long in the earth. His lips were cracked, his jaw stiff, but his eyes locked onto me with a strange intensity. And he smiled. It was faint, brittle, but it was a smile. For a split second, my heart betrayed me. That smile, it was his. The one he'd give me when he came home from work, tired but happy to see me. For that moment, I almost forgot the casket, the grave, the suit buried in dirt. Mark. My voice broke. I didn't even mean to say it. He didn't answer. He just stepped into the room, slow and dragging, but with a strange purpose. His hand reached out, not trembling this time. Steady. Intentional. I stumbled back, clutching the counter for balance. No, you're not real. You're not him. But my words didn't stop him. His fingers brushed against the towel I'd dropped, curling into the fabric, and for a moment I thought, God help me, I thought he was trying to help me fold it. Like muscle memory guiding him through a routine he'd done 100 times. My stomach twisted. The smell of damp earth filled the room, stronger than ever, sour and wet. I ran. I left the towels scattered on the floor and bolted out of the laundry room, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear. When I dared to glance back, he was still standing there, clutching that towel, staring at me like I was the only thing keeping him upright. I locked myself in the bathroom and didn't come out until evening. That was the first time I realized he wasn't confined to the nights anymore. He could come whenever he wanted. And worse, he was getting stronger. That night, I decided I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I packed a small bag, just the essentials, and booked a cheap hotel room across town. I didn't care about the cost. I just needed distance. But the thing about grief, about love, is that it chains you. As I zipped my bag, I found myself pausing, staring at the wedding photo on the dresser. Mark was smiling in it, alive and warm. The real Mark. And the thought slid in, uninvited. What if it really is him? What if I'm abandoning him when he's trying to come back to me? The thought made me sick. But it wouldn't let go. I drove to the hotel anyway. The relief I felt when I checked in, when I closed the door behind me and knew there was no way he could follow, it was overwhelming. For the first time in days, I thought maybe I could sleep. And I did. Until 3:17 a.m. The sound woke me. A familiar creak. Not the hotel door, it was different. Softer. Familiar. The sound of my front door opening. I shot upright, disoriented. For a moment, I thought I was back home. But the sterile walls of the hotel reminded me where I was. My door was locked, bolted. No one could get in. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Dragging. Slow. Inside the room. The air turned heavy, thick with the scent of earth. My chest tightened, panic clawing at my throat. I wasn't even in my house anymore. I had left. And still, he had found me. I turned my head slowly toward the corner of the room. And there he was. Mark. Standing in the shadows by the dresser, his cloudy eyes fixed on me, his lips parting as if to speak. But this time, there was no hesitation. Home, he rasped again. And then he took a step toward the bed. I couldn't move. He was standing in my hotel room, the same as in my house, as if walls and locks and distance meant nothing. His pale face hovered just beyond the shadows, his body unnaturally still except for the faint sway, like a puppet on an invisible string. Home, he rasped again, the word dragging out of him like gravel across stone. I pressed back against the headboard, my breath coming in shallow gasps. You're not supposed to be here. My voice cracked, pathetic even to my own ears. He took another step toward the bed. The floor creaked under his weight, real and heavy. His suit was worse now, the fabric stiff, mottled with dark stains at the cuffs. The closer he came, the more the smell overwhelmed me, wet soil, rot, the sickly sweet stench of something dug up too soon. I covered my mouth with my hand, gagging. Tears stung my eyes. Why? Why are you doing this? For a long, agonizing moment, he just stood there. His head tilted again, that unnatural angle that made my stomach twist. And then, in a low, broken whisper, he said something new. You left me. The words froze the blood in my veins. I didn't, I whispered back, shaking my head violently. Mark, I was there. I held you. My voice faltered. You died. You're gone. But he didn't move. He just stared, those cloudy eyes boring into me, until a horrible thought slid into my mind like ice water. What if he doesn't know he's dead? The idea made me nauseous. If this really was Mark, some fragment of him, then maybe he thought he had just come home. That I had shut him out, buried him alive in the earth, locked the doors on him. Mark, I whispered, tears streaking my face, I didn't leave you. I didn't. Please believe me. For a split second, I thought I saw something flicker across his expression. Pain. Recognition. But then it was gone, replaced by something colder. He leaned closer, his voice rasping so low it was almost a growl. Home. And then the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, so sudden and absolute it swallowed my scream. I fumbled for the lamp switch, the phone, anything, but nothing worked. The air grew heavy, pressing down on me, filling my lungs with the smell of soil until I thought I'd choke. And in that pitch black, I felt it. A hand. Cold, damp, pressing against my ankle. I screamed and kicked wildly, scrambling across the bed, my heart exploding in my chest. My foot connected with something solid, his hand, his arm. I didn't care, and I bolted off the bed, crashing hard against the nightstand. Pain shot through my hip, but adrenaline dragged me forward. I slammed into the bathroom and locked the door, my body shaking so violently I could barely hold the knob. On the other side, silence. For hours, I sat on the cold tile floor, clutching my knees to my chest, waiting. Listening. At some point, exhaustion dragged me into a restless half-sleep. When I finally dared to open the door, the room was empty. The lights flicked back on as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. He had found me. And if he could find me here, there was nowhere I could go. The next day, I drove back to the house. I told myself it was because I needed answers, but the truth is simpler. I was tired of running. If he wanted me home, maybe facing him there was the only way to end this. The house was suffocating the moment I stepped inside. Stale air, shadows clinging to corners even in daylight. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt claimed. I went straight to the bedroom, pulled out the old wooden box Mark used to keep in his nightstand. Inside were photographs, cards, mementos of our life together. I sifted through them with shaking hands, searching for, I don't even know, a clue, a connection. And then I found it. A folded note, tucked behind the photos. My handwriting, though I had no memory of writing it. I'll never leave you. No matter what. My stomach dropped. The memory hit me like a knife, me, sitting at this very table years ago, writing it during one of our worst fights. I had slipped it into his box to reassure him, to prove I was committed no matter what. I pressed the note to my chest, trembling. Had he found it? Clung to it? Was that why he kept coming back, because I had promised him I never would leave? The room grew cold. I lifted my head slowly, my skin crawling. And there he was, standing in the corner of the bedroom. Watching me. Silent. His cloudy eyes dropped to the note in my hands. And for the first time, I swore I saw a smile spread across his ruined lips. His smile froze me. It wasn't warm. It wasn't Mark's smile. It was wrong, twisted, stiff, stretched across gray skin like it didn't belong to him at all. And yet, in that awful curve of his lips, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. Possession. Not of the house. Not even of the air I breathed. Of me. The note crumpled in my shaking hand. My own words burned in my skull. I'll never leave you. No matter what. Is that it? My voice cracked as tears blurred my vision. Is that why you're here? Because of this. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. He just stared at me, unblinking, his cloudy eyes drilling into mine. The air grew heavier by the second, thick with damp, cloying soil. I gagged, clutching my chest as my lungs screamed for clean air. Mark, listen to me, I gasped. That was before. I didn't mean forever. Not like this. Please, let me go. His head tilted slowly, that unnatural angle I had come to dread. And then, in that broken, gravelly voice, he spoke again. You promised. My knees buckled. I slid down against the dresser, sobbing. I buried you. You're dead, Mark. I loved you, but you're dead. For the first time, his face twitched, as if the word wounded him. But instead of fading, he stepped closer. His shadow loomed long across the floor, swallowing mine whole. You left me. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into flashes of darkness and pale light. Each flicker made his form jolt closer, like he was snapping forward piece by piece. One moment in the corner, the next halfway across the room. And then, he was crouched in front of me. The stench was unbearable. His skin sagged close enough to brush mine. His cold breath washed across my face. I tried to scream, but my throat closed under the weight of it. My vision tunneled. His hand lifted slowly, trembling stiff. He pressed his palm against my chest, over my heart. And I swear I felt it stop. Just for a moment. A single, terrible beat of silence inside me. Then he leaned closer, his ruined lips almost brushing my ear. His voice was a whisper, ragged and final. Home. The world went black. I don't know how long I was gone. When I woke, the house was silent. Morning light streamed through the blinds. My body ached, every nerve raw, but my heart was beating again. I was alone. At least, I thought I was. The house smelled clean. No damp earth. No rot. For the first time in days, the air was breathable. I dared to believe it was over. That maybe I had fainted, that my mind had conjured it all from the depths of grief. But when I staggered to the mirror, I saw it. A smear of dirt across my chest, right where his hand had been. Stained into my skin, no matter how hard I scrubbed. And worse, my reflection wasn't quite right. My smile. It was there, stretched faintly across my lips. The same stiff, brittle curve I had seen on his face. I stumbled back from the mirror, trembling. Because the truth hit me then, cold and merciless. Mark hadn't come back home. I had.